Hi everyone! So in this video, I want to talk about the new Hearthstone Masters that has recently been introduced by Blizzard and the Hearthstone esports team. So the Hearthstone Masters has a few different levels to it. The first tier of these Masters are the Master Qualifiers, which are basically just online tournaments that are open to anyone. They are maxed at 224 players per tournament. There are a handful basically every single day. They are starting March 5th, and just as an example, here are some of the first few tournaments. These tournaments are specific to the region that you're playing on, the server that you play in-game. So, for example, this first one here, March 6th, it is 7 p.m. my time, but that is on the Asia Pacific server, so I would have to play on the Asia Pacific server with my collection on that server to play in that tournament. Same thing goes for any tournaments that say Europe or the North America. They correspond to the server in-game that you want to play on. You can play on just one if you only have a collection on one of the servers, or all three. You just have to make sure that whichever tournament you sign up for, you play on the correct server. Going back to the announcement page, one big thing here is that every winner of one of these qualifiers, so just the winner of every qualifier, is invited to the next step in the Masters tournament, which is the Masters Tour. So the first one here is June 14th to 16th in Las Vegas, Nevada, in the United States. And they did announce here a $250,000 prize pool, plus more when they add in a bundle in the shop that people can purchase, and some of those funds from that bundle will actually go into the prize pool over the 3 different Masters Tour tournaments over 2019. So here is the calendar here, just kind of giving a brief overview of what the kind of calendar looks like for the year. So March and April are the 2 qualifying months to participate in those online qualifiers. And in June, like I said, June 14th through 16th is the actual Masters Tour in-person tournament. Then May through June is the qualifying time frame for the tournament being held in the Asia Pacific region, which will be in August. And then July and August will be the qualifying time frame for the Europe in-person Masters Tour, which will be held in October. Another interesting thing here is that they did say also that ranked ladder will also have a chance to qualify for these Masters Tour in-person tournaments. So, top 200 Legend Ladder will actually all get put into their own little tournament to compete against each other. So it's really going to be kind of an intense tournament, I think. Just those top 200 Legend players really competing for that, and then getting to play against each other in an actual competitive format rather than just playing on ladder. And the top 4 from that tournament will also qualify for the Masters Tour, the in-person tournament. There's a little bit more here. Securing an invitation through licensed third-party tournaments, finishing as a top performer at a previous Masters Tour, qualifying through the Gold China Series, and for players who over this past year through 2018 and into the early parts here of 2019 earned 120 competitive points, which is what they did before for the HCT circuit. So we don't really know yet about the details of finishing as a top performer. What that means, we don't know yet. They haven't given us exact details on all of that yet. So we don't know if that means the top 4 qualify, top 2, only the top person. We don't know exactly yet. But looks like they're trying to come up with a mix of ways to qualify for these in-person events. And the final stage here is the Hearthstone Grand Masters, which, of course, like I mentioned, they don't have full details yet. But just based on the calendar that we looked at here, I'm guessing that's going to be further into the year, maybe December or January kind of time frame, after all of these other Hearthstone Masters tours have taken place and all of the winners have been figured out. Blizzard also announced the new format, and this is really the kind of meatiest part of this announcement here. They're calling it Specialist Format, and in a way, it's going to be very similar to how Magic the Gathering and a lot of other card games kind of have their main tournament format. So technically, in a way, you're kind of bringing one deck, just like Magic would. But the difference here is that since it's in-game, you're bringing 3 decks of the same class and kind of have your initial deck. Your first deck, they call it here the primary deck, and you have a secondary and tertiary decks. The difference with the secondary and tertiary decks is you can have a 5-card difference from your primary deck. So in a way, very similar to how a sideboard could work in Magic the Gathering, although it's a bit fewer cards than what Magic does. But again, kind of the same theory here. It's kind of the same deck. You can have tech cards in there that change up a few matchups and maybe throw your opponent off if they saw one card in the first match with your primary deck. Well, the second game, you might have switched to a different thing that doesn't have that card, and they don't know what to expect. Now, it does say that these matches will be played as best of 3, so you only need to win 2 of them to get the win against the opponent. Again, very similar to Magic. And the only difference here is that at Master Tour events, finals will be a best of 5 instead of a best of 3. Overall, I think there are a lot of good changes here, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this specialist format really plays out. The interesting thing about how frequent some of these tournaments are online is that we might actually start to see a very rapid change in the tournament meta. What deck is very good or maybe could be perceived as a dominant deck or the most players start to bring could change very, very quickly, and it might actually change a lot quicker than what we've seen in other tournament metas in the past, just because there wasn't as many frequent tournaments as these online qualifiers. So it'll be really interesting to see how this unfolds, and I think it's going to be a good thing to start bringing more amateur players who want to be competitive into the scene. Because you only bring one class and just a variant on the one deck, it's going to be a lot easier for people to actually put in decks and play in these tournaments because they don't need to have 3 or 4 different decks with tons of legendaries and epics or whatever they feel is required. I'm hoping that we'll actually start to see a lot more kind of, again, these amateur or aspiring players really rise up and start competing. I know I will be. But it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds. And again, I think it's going to start changing very quickly. So I think that's going to be something that turns out to actually be a lot of fun for people. We'll see. I'm not super thrilled necessarily about the best 2 of 3 instead of the best of 5, but it should make it go a lot faster. This is just a kind of quick overview. I just wanted to get some information out there and kind of get my feelings out about the specialist format. If you want more information, or to read any of the details or look at the tournament details themselves, the links will be in the description below. What do you think of the specialist format? Do you think that Hearthstone is trying to be comparable to Magic the Gathering and some of those other card games? Do you think it's going to be good for the game? I've seen a lot of mixed feelings so far from the community, but I don't think we'll truly know until after it's been played some, so we'll see how it all works. Thank you so much for watching.